I found a new way to set up my mic and now it's like picking up everything. Don't mind me, it's just like a little bit of tongue and teeth and saliva action over here. So, hello. I find it really hard to watch any late night talk show clip. Like before 2010s, like 90s, 80s, 70s, for sure, that has like female guests in it. I'm sure you've also come across clips of late night hosts, usually male, like borderline assaulting, disrespecting, or just being really cringe around a female presence. If you have not, type in any female celebrity's name, like higher the chance if the celebrity is conventionally pretty or sexy, plus any late night show on YouTube, TikTok. The whole time I'm watching these clips, I'm like, how come it's so normal for these old men to ask these women such questions or act the way they do around them? It was horrifying then as it is horrifying now. Not only they haven't aged well, these like really cheesy and sexist jokes, but they should have died on the spot as well. Like, it should have been a bigger issue then too. There have been countless times recorded on talk show TV of these hosts like badgering their guests with private or inappropriate questions. Often the most cringeworthy moments on talk shows occur between the male talk show hosts and women celebrities. No man or woman should be spoken to in this manner, and obviously like disrespect could potentially happen to men as well. But this mostly happens with women because talk show hosts wouldn't dare to piss off other men like this. The dynamic plays out in a really mean fashion, especially if there is an imbalance of power, as in the case of people of color or women, as I will talk about today. If you think this is just like specific to a single late night show or entertainment genre, it's not. I watch like different late night shows that celebrities I follow attend to in different countries and different languages, and the treatment is just the same, if not even worse than the States. Some of the most common actions that I'm talking about are, for example, objectifying the female guests, like ogling their breasts, pretending to be bothered by their like ever so sexy presence, breaking a sweat, etc. Like, I don't know how to express this kind of male behavior on TV, or complimenting their body parts like legs, breasts, etc. and make this a whole moment. Another thing they would do would be to cross like physical boundaries, like touching or doing other hands-on stuff without asking or explaining in full, some of which even the female guest consents, can be really cringy to watch as entertainment, which makes you question like the entire purpose of that skit. Like, why does David Letterman think the audience would enjoy seeing him suck on Jennifer Aniston's hair? It's weird. Or like another thing they would do is ask them really invasive questions about, for example, like their weight, like Victoria Beckham being forced to weigh herself on a TV show. Like, why was that even relevant? Other than weight, like about their sex lives, about past dating life, about drug abuse, making derogatory remarks along the way, slut shaming them, and by showing this as light entertainment, making sure the audience slut shames these women as well, backing them into a corner so they have no other option than to comply and to go along with the skit. Some would say they're like approved by the female celebrity, their management before going live, that it's all scripted, but some celebrities like Lindsay Lohan have come up and said the questions were not in the pre-show notes and was a complete surprise. I'm sure as an industry outsider that a lot of on-the-spot invasive questions and actions can be added just for the shock factor and entertainment. And even if they handshake on it before the show, we can still question how much agency does the guest have on it. And even knowing what's coming up, it can still be very embarrassing for them and cringeworthy for the audience overall. I just really want to know like what drives the late night hosts to act this way, what gives them the entitlement, and how we watched these shows for so many years. So I will start with the mainstream portrayal of men and women on TV. I think it's really important to study mainstream TV in order to understand the social understanding of the times before the social media era, due to the sheer number of people watching these productions. So TV often relies on stereotypes to depict ideas, people, or experiences, often focusing on race, class, gender, and age. Gender stereotypes in media cover different aspects like sexual behavior, jobs, roles in the society, like social interaction, and family life. Despite efforts to challenge these stereotypes, traditional gender norms still dominate many media productions, portraying women as passive and emotional, while men are depicted as powerful, professional, and authoritative. Mass media, like television, plays a significant role in shaping these stereotypes, influencing how people perceive others in real life. The society can adopt certain behaviors through observation, such as watching TV programs. These behaviors serve as a reference for potential situations people might encounter in real life. This way, media frequently promotes and reinforces specific social behaviors and attitudes towards women. The most common form on TV and on late night talk shows being like sexist humor. There are different kinds of talk shows, so not all talk shows play out the same way for these stereotypes. One type that is almost an antithesis for the standard late night talk shows that I would like to talk about is the daytime talk shows, like variety shows. I'm sure you've seen shows like these. We feel like almost an overwhelming female presence in these type of shows, and they are characterized by like having a lot of emotional content and to be like more feminine leaning. Women are more present in these shows, both as guests and hosts. I'm sure you've seen like programs of the sort. It can be about like pop cultures, about celebrities, about health, household care, and maybe all of it at once. Most of them are. There are many programs like this in daytime TV programming, and even though there is a male audience for it as well, it is mostly considered as feminine and mostly as trash TV. That was kind of the way I was feeling about it too, up until some time ago. So they're not very highly reputed amongst audiences because female talk is generally frowned upon as gossip. Like, nothing that is worth of people's times, like real world issues, cannot be discussed in this context. Whereas late night TV, on the other hand, the complete opposite. These kind of talk shows are generally considered to be more sophisticated and legitimate source of information. Well, generally, like being the operative word here, I mean by the masses in general. They are considered to display like valuable discourse. A crucial aspect of these programs involves like chatting with a celebrity or a notable figure in a relaxed and humorous setting. Additionally, late night TV shows typically tackle public and current events, making them quite pertinent to the political scene, particularly during the presidential campaigns in the US, more specifically. I don't know much for everywhere else in the world, but this could also be really US specific. Since they're aired during the prime time in which a lot of eyeballs are tuned in, they're perceived to be more socially and politically relevant with high social impact. Late night shows are perceived as higher quality products. They're more sophisticated and entertaining. Like, this is the common perception. Not to say obviously for like every single show, but I'm talking more about like the pre-social media era understanding of late night TV shows. So even throughout the rise of the social media, though, these shows have continued their impact, like well into this day, I guess. The segments of the show that have the highest potential to become viral, such as like the opening monologue, celebrity interviews, and musical performances, are often extracted as standalone shorter videos. These videos also go viral, although maybe like not as much in recent years, but they're still like very prevalent and very impactful. But in these late night shows, female voices and female roles have not been very present, and it's still not very present either. Although there has been some trial error efforts on that part, there has been very few female late night show hosts. I don't really know much about the writer's room, but on screen, women perform more passive roles within the show. They are usually the guests. With the male host, female guest dynamic, we can see a lot of gender stereotypes that are being at play here. Men can be seemed to have like the upper hand in the conversation because they generally like lead the conversation, and most of the talk show hosts have had successful stand-up careers, so they're more prone to have a successful interaction, I think, because part of stand-up comedy is to have the quick wit and reply, and to have that kind of experience before really prepares you for live TV. So they have the upper hand in the conversation in terms of experience in comedy. Well, the reason why I think this way is because I think in a social exchange, use of humor demonstrates dominance over the situation and confidence. These traits, when displayed on the men's side, is more comfortable for the audience in general. On the women's side, there is a conflict between femininity and performance of comedy, and I'm talking about like in very generalized sense, not because I think this way. So yeah, there is a conflict between femininity and performance of comedy. There is an expectation for women to embody traits such as modesty, like less agency maybe, and adherence to stricter moral standards. Basically, women are expected to be good sports and yield to the line of questioning and leave the comedy to men. One other thing is that the older women get, the less they become present on TV in general and on late night shows as well. So the higher chances of a young female celebrity being sat across a man twice their age and late night experience. These, like age gap, experience gap, the pressure to conform to the gender stereotypes, all these factors make it even harder to do an already impossible mission. The mission of being a likable young female in the eyes of the public. This mission is impossibly hard and leaves very little room for error, obviously. When the host crosses a boundary or disrespects you in some way, and you want to stand up for yourself, or at least give back the same energy, or a petty remark on live TV, one sentence, or something that you do that's not very likable can cost you a career, which is obviously not the same for men, as there is really like no consequence for their creepy actions. They still go out and have very successful late night careers. So that's really a lot to think about on your feed when you're trying to reply to a question. It's really like tough to make the right move on the spot. I'm sure there are some like really good clapbacks out there. We can find like compilations of it online, but I really empathize with just taking the blow or trying to be a good sport, even when an important boundary is crossed. I can really like understand why they do it. Women often find themselves in a challenging position where they must assert themselves very politely, hoping to avoid being labeled as bitchy. Yet they still end up being disregarded or overridden by others. Because the worst part is that there is no good option of dealing with this on air as it's happening. If you don't say something, you get perved on by very creepy dudes who have gotten way too used to calling the shots. And if you say something, like, can't you just take a joke? Like, be a cool girl. Well, not so much in the era of social media, but I'm talking about like pre-social media era, as I've said like 100 times in this podcast. In the era of social media, we can try and cancel people and express our discomfort in a particular skit or a moment, but there was no easy way for people to collectively try and cancel someone back then. So people saw the episode if they were watching TV at that particular time, or else they missed it. It's probable, even if you did not, you could still simply laugh along with the audience, because I think I have in the past, as that's like the social expectation ingrained by the group dynamics when watching such situations unfold as the audience. So all of these things I have talked about gives the guests a level of malleability. And I think the producers and the hosts are almost always too aware of that the audience would go along with whatever charade they would present, like the general public. So they would pressure the guests or ask for ridiculous things. For example, I'd like to give this example of this exchange between Madonna and David Letterman. So in this clip that I found online, he says something like, "Go kiss the guy in the audience. It would knock him out. What about like on the forehead?" She's very consistent about it, because she's Madonna and she's like full on refusing. I can't. He's not tall enough, she says. And then he says, I like that she said, I can't. A lot of people would cave in to the pressure and say, oh, well, right. They'd go out and kiss them and get it over with. Incredible. So that was the quote. So you are aware that you are putting your guests under like whatever the equivalent of peer pressure is to millions of people watching at home. So that there might be parts of her that are not willing or does not consent. It's so weird to be aware of that and to still like pester someone about it. There are like so many clips online like this that does not pass the vibe check, are like either super cringe or straight up like cancelable, if that's a word. So I would like to end this episode by talking about the one offense, well, two, that inspired this episode. I call this phenomena punching down on the repentant female celebrity. This was actually kind of viral on Twitter. Lindsay Lohan goes on David Letterman to promote her upcoming project, Scary Movie 5. So Letterman, after reciting a series of jokes aimed at Lindsay Lohan, attempted to delve into questions about her rehab experience, despite her not consenting to discuss that topic beforehand. Aren't you supposed to be in rehab? He says, such questions. You can see that despite her discomfort, he's going for the scoop. He keeps on pestering her these questions. He keeps on cornering her and trying to ask about it. And Lindsay Lohan is being like super kind and generous in her replies because that's not what I would have done. And the same thing happened with Paris Hilton when she goes to promote a fragrance. She says in an interview, my PR team made an agreement to him that the prison discussion was off limits and we would not discuss it. And we'd only be there to promote the perfume and my other business ventures. I thought he'd keep his word on this. But during the show, he asks, how do you like being in jail? Like, this is so sad and merciless. Because at the time, like 2013 for Lindsay Lohan and 2007 for Paris Hilton, the public opinion on these women is very low already and very hostile to begin with. Like, nowhere near the level of support or understanding that they would have now. Like, he fully knows that whatever he says, the public will just eat it up and be even more cruel in return to these women. And to ask for these women in your show and then to humiliate, people with already very shaky reputations is punching down, and it's very cruel. Other than that, I also hate these clips because of his know-it-all attitude and patronizing behavior. Like, you know better than them when you were like actively seeking them out for rating. Both women expressed how distressed and traumatized this experience made them. Producers probe for the most vulnerable aspects of their guests' lives, as these examples have shown. The audience is led to believe the talk show experience is a positive one, but it was damaging both for their public image and for their mental health. There is like a growing recognition and reflection on how cultures treat famous young women, particularly in tabloid coverage and interviews and talk shows, with influential media figures. And I would definitely say like it's going for the better, because I think today anything of that sort would happen, there would be a raging like support for these women if they were to be wronged in any way. Obviously there would still be so many people who would hate these women for no reason, but at least their voices would be heard and their point of views could be understood and spread more clearly, and the men wouldn't be able to get away with it in such ways. So I think the late night hosts are more, in some ways, like prepared and vigilant in order to prevent any kind of downfall that might befall them from raging feminists. I guess they would not want to receive that level of backlash. But yeah, this was an episode on the late night talk show Misogyny. This was Who Ordered a Small Yappuccino. Before you go, you can leave a rating and a review. Thank you for listening.